Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another breaking news in one of our discoveries. As many of you have already found out and know, it was on the news last night. We have found Ralph Brown, who was the missing mayor, former mayor out of Cornelius, Oregon. One of the things I want to touch on first off is, while the headlines, whether it's from us or it's the news organizations, it has really been focused on former mayor, former mayor. This is a gentleman, Ralph Brown, who is, a lot more than a former mayor. He was a pillar in his community. He was a principal of the school. He was in charge of track and field. He was, a teacher to many and a mentor and, a loving father and a grandfather, and everybody that we have ran across, has something, incredible to say about him. I've got one friend that reached out to me and said, I didn't know he was still missing. He's the one where I first met my wife back in track and field way back in the day. And before we get into, the details of, Ralph and the recovery and, how we came back after 10 times searching for him over this past year. He was missing 3 days, just 3 days shy of missing a year. And, why did we come back to a certain location? Why did we search it 3 times before? And what drew us back to that area? Doug's going to talk more about that in just a moment. But, I just want to jump into, Ralph. Ralph is a man, as the memories are starting to, pour out online on one of the Facebook pages for Find Ralph Brown, Find Ralph Davis Brown of Oregon. I just want to, share the feelings from others, as to Ralph. And just 2 or 3 of these, and bear with me. And if you happen to be a news organization, anything that you see in this video, you're welcome to use as your own for your own press releases. This is not an edited video. This is live right now. We're bringing you the information as we, were on the search yesterday and brought Ralph home. We will have an actual edited video later on. It's going to be 2 or 3 weeks before that is released. We have a backlog of videos right now, so please no complaining that I hate these live streams. This is a live stream. It is what it is. This is 2 talking heads right now, bringing you the information direct as it just happened.
Just a briefing. So be patient. The fully edited version will be out soon.
Yep. So this comes in from a gal by the name of Tracy. So sad about this. My prayers to the family. He was my neighbor as a child, and he would wave at me through the window every morning. He tossed a baseball for me at school when he saw me there, and another time he'd play tennis with me. He picked blackberries with me in the fields before there were houses. He stood at the bottom of the treehouse and asked if he could come up, and we laughed and we laughed. He bought my art I sold at the stand in front of my house one summer. Think about how many times you've seen, a neighborhood kid selling lemonade. Ralph stopped to buy art to support, the kids in the community and make them feel good. And, just incredible. I like these stories that, are being shared. We moved to Hillsboro, and he became my principal. He was firm, but he was gentle towards me, an adult that I admired. Later, as an adult, he would remember me and say hi with what I always thought was a goofy grin. And part of his goofy grins too, that there's a lot of videos and pictures and stuff that's popping up online, And for me, one of the things when I first took this case on with Ralph, he reminded me of my own grandfather, and partly because he was missing part of his finger, and they just had but the grin of, and sharing the stories as to how he lost his finger, or, being there for others, and, the races that he was always involved in, and just, again, coming back to the pillar of his community. It's not a story of a former mayor. It's a story of somebody that was, kind to all, that was there. And you're going to hear that as I read 2 other stories from 2 other people, and then we'll let Doug get into the recovery of yesterday and coming back to how we found Ralph. I'll finish this one with Tracy. Later as an adult, he would remember me and say hi. What I always thought was a goofy grin. I will miss that smile of his, and I will never forget him. This one's from Becky. Dear Ralph's family, my heart goes out to you. I'm not usually one to comment on things like this, but Ralph calls for an exception. I used to run with Ralph in the ORRC events. Everyone loved his kind spirit, and he was well known within our running community. I always enjoyed seeing Ralph at our events. I recall a particular shampoo 10K several years ago when he and I leapfrogged as I walked and ran while he trotted along at a steady pace. Kind of reminds me of the the tortoise and the hare story as I was reading this. We started joking about it, and he kept encouraging me whenever I fell behind. Ralph was everyone's cheerleader. He was sweet, considerate, and humble. I didn't even know he was the former mayor of Cornelius. And that's kind of my point to this is he was so many things to so many people. I'm glad that I knew Ralph, and I hope everyone has the chance to know someone like him during their lifetime. It says a lot. I'm sorry for your loss. One more, and then we'll jump into Doug here. Ralph was an incredible man that I was so honored to have as my principal at Brown for 3 years. He cared for everyone. He was patient, kind, and understanding. He wasn't just a principal. He was a friend, a great mentor, a wonderful person. Today is the hardest day, but yet forgiving of what's lost and now is found. It's a time for grieving and a time of healing. Rest easy, Mr. Brown. So these stories that are starting to come out, like I wish that I knew Ralph, but we never did. We come into these as nothing more than a neighbor to help. And I've said this before. I'm coming into this as a uncle, as a brother, as a friend, as a dad, as a grandpa, that somebody's calling out for help to help them find their lost loved one. And that's what brings us into this, is just the wanting to help. And all of you being here, you play a big role in this, in us being able to be boots on the ground with your guys' support, putting us out there by simply, spreading awareness of Adventure with Purpose, and watching this. So with that being said, I'm going to let Doug do most of the talking from here on out. I want to say thank you for each and every one of you for being here and supporting us.
Yeah, thank you guys for everything, putting us in this position. And, for those of you who are familiar with all of the work that we've put forth in on this case, we're 2 days away from the 1 year anniversary. Ralph went missing, May 16th last year. And, this makes the 10th time that we put together a really massive search to search for him and waterways in this entire region. We've covered a lot. We were up at Hag Lake. We were on, several private farmlands up near Cornelius, Wheatland Ferry, Canby Ferry, all over the Tualatin River, Shampooey Park, Rogers Landing Park several times, and also over the last year with everything that we've done, every case that we do, we're learning. Every time we put the boat in the water and we're using sonar, we are teaching ourselves more and more and more. Every case that we break down with the details and so forth, we're learning from those tactics that make us successful. And with that, Jared and I we could not move past, the cell phone ping there at Rogers Landing Park. And it really wasn't at the park. It was in the vicinity. It was like, a quarter of a mile up the hill. But the closest body of water, which we specialize in water, as you guys know, was Rogers Landing. And we had to go back. Yes, we've been there 3 times before, but we had to go back and take the knowledge that we built over the last year and apply that. And that's really what happened yesterday. We came in the Rogers Landing Park 9 a.m. in the morning, and less than 30 minutes of the boat in the water, we discovered what was we believed to be a vehicle underwater in the Willamette River at Rogers Landing. Now the conditions on the Willamette River right now are the worst that they have been probably ever. We've had record amount of rainfall over the last 2 months. So the current, the amount of the debris that is in the river right now is, the conditions were very, very intense, and arguably the most dangerous dive I've ever been a part of. We located the car. We immediately put together a plan to dive on it. We weren't, the current was so strong, and where the car was positioned underneath the pier, we weren't even able to get a magnet on it, which is pivotal in everything that we do when we locate these cars. As you guys see, we mark it with the magnet. We use that as a guideline. We weren't able to do that.
For 2 reasons on that. 2 reasons on that. One, you have the current. So, you drop something in the water, and the current is pushing the magnet away from it, but also just trying to get down through all this debris of logs and everything. We could not get the magnet down through there. In fact, we ended up losing the monster magnet yesterday as well.
And that monster magnet weighs a lot.
Yeah.
It was a struggle, but what we did it. I got suited up. I went down, trees everywhere. It was intense. Can't see anything. There's trees. I'm climbing through trees underwater in a really rough current, and it got so dangerous. And I don't have a guideline whatsoever that I'm having to use my knife to carve in trees underwater so that I can find my way back to where I was. And we eventually found the car. And the instant I found the car, I knew it was blue. I knew it was a Nissan. It was his license plate. It was an insane relief to know that after all the work we put in, we're finally able to find Ralph's vehicle. No true words can describe when we find these vehicles. And at that point, I began my assessment of the vehicle, the condition of the vehicle, potential recovery points. That way, once we bring law enforcement in, we can then divulge a foolproof recovery plan and have those answers they need topside in order to put together a recovery mission. Jared immediately reached out to Mr. Brown's family, notified them. Right after that, we reached out to Yamhill County. Yamhill County came out. They were aware of who we are. They utilized our resource and our expertise. We put together a massive recovery operation. We brought in Northwestern Towing out of Portland, Oregon. They brought down their rotator. The rotator was pivotal in making this happen. We're talking about a vehicle that was off a 20-foot cliff, 40 feet below the surface. We needed every bit of that rotator's capability yesterday in what we did.
And not just down, as he was describing, but we're also underneath, not logs. We're under full trees. We're 60, 80 foot tall trees that are down there wedged into all this. And we're also between two pylons underneath of a dock. So in this situation, 100% no floating it. One, because of the current. Two, because of all the debris. Doug's having a difficult time even getting down on it, wedging himself in between all this. Dangerous because, at any moment too, you could have another log or something come down there. So these are the risks that we understand and we take. And so with the recovery, having to pick it up and come up with that game plan of, hey, we're going to be dragging this thing underneath of it, and we have to do this one time. We cannot keep going down in these conditions. And so taking, the knowledge that Doug has from, being in the tow industry for the last 20 years, working with Jimmy with Northwestern Towing, working with, our diving and the experience that we've gained, it all comes together. And, I'll let you jump back in.
Big shout out to Jimmy up at Northwestern Towing for donating his time and his services. He had his whole crew there, 6 guys, $1 million rotator, another rollback there for hours. And they were there clear, a good 6 hours, well at almost to midnight. So it says a lot about them coming in and making that possible. Yamhill County Sheriff's Department, Washington County Sheriff's Department, the medical examiner's office. As well as Ralph's family. Everybody needs to keep them in their thoughts and their prayers. Our condolences out to them. It's a tough time for them right now, but it's the answers that they needed. It's the answers that this entire community here locally has needed. Everyone here, like Jared said, knows Ralph Brown. When as a pillar of a community, if you look that up in the dictionary, his name should be next to that. He was a pillar. He served in the National Guard up at Seaside, principal at Brown. He was a teacher, an advocator, an educator,
a mentor,
a
friend,
a grandfather,
dad.
Husband. The entire community now has answers. I'm honored that we were able to be relentless. We were relentless.
Very clean recovery, though. We, based upon what we've, continued to learn, we kept the vehicle nice and low with the rotator pulling across the surface, or across the surface on the bottom of the river. The moment that it gets to the bank and it starts to come up, re-rigging from just the rear tires and going with 4 points now, so that way we have 4 points to lift. And that's where these rotators are pivotal as well, is because now we're able to control the second line, and we're able to then bring the vehicle level and flat so that way we're not losing anything, because the vehicle was underwater, and luckily all of the windows were intact when the vehicle was found, and the recovery was so clean and smooth that we knew that the windshield was going to be damaged in the process. But the one thing that we always worry about is busting out these side windows. And like I said, everything went flawlessly on it. None of those windows were broken out in the process. Jimmy did an incredible job, brought the vehicle up, then used the rotator to spin it around to where it needed to be. So that way the medical examiner could do, their forensics investigation on this as well. Megan is, who you may have seen in one of our previous episodes on the search, is Ralph's granddaughter. She was out there yesterday with her husband. She was keeping her family updated. I was keeping, their family updated as well as things were happening, to make sure that, they were aware of the process, and, everything was being handled, with love and with care and with respect. One of the things from the news, the news says, we've never experienced a recovery that's gone so clean as this. Nothing went wrong. It was quick. It was efficient. Anything else like this in the past, we've been out here for another 4 or 5 hours. We just, appreciate everything that you guys are doing, out here. And again, it comes back to the appreciation of us being appreciative of all of you for, helping us be out here, to be the boots on the ground, that it's not just, you've heard us say it before, it's not just two guys in an RV with a couple of camera guys. This is entire movement. We're just a small role in this, that you guys are putting us in this position. So thank you to each and every one of you.
Absolutely. Wouldn't be possible. We're doing this utilizing social media platforms, and we're getting the results that, not a knock on any agency or organization, but we're getting results that, others that have multi-million-dollar budgets aren't coming close to getting. And it just says a lot about you guys putting us in a position to be able to do this, to produce those results, so thank you.
Yeah, and with that too, is the law enforcement organizations that are becoming aware of who we are as well,
Yep.
and trusting us, with these recoveries to help you out. We have no problem stepping back. We want to provide as much as we can for you, and that's why we do the assessments while we're underwater. But if you need our resources, and that we may have, better skills at doing so, we don't mind stepping in to help you out. If you feel like your team is more appropriate, no problem at all. In the past, you may have seen, like, one or two of my early videos where it's like, it's like kind of like we would pick them apart and kind of throw them under the bus a little bit in the very beginning. I apologize for that. There's a lot of growth that has happened with all of us over the last couple of years. A lot of things we've learned, how to work with law enforcement appropriately, how to work with families, things that we say, things that we don't say.
We're learning. Every day we're learning, and we're getting better. We're getting more efficient, and law enforcement agencies across the nation are seeing that, and they're everywhere we go, they're trusting us to perform these recovery operations. And I actually prefer that. As much training as we have with doing this, and I'm not saying this in a cocky way, but there's no one out there with more experience doing this particular type of underwater vehicle removal recoveries with bodies in it than us. It's a forensic, it's a very intricate way you have to recover these vehicles when it's a forensics recovery. And we have agencies that are reaching out to us for help, for training, and we want to help.
The FBI, Doug in the FBI headquarters, with 20 plus agents or so.
And Behavior was able to, and we're not chefs in the kitchen that aren't sharing the recipe. We want to share and do as much good and have as many people learn from us and do as much good as they can, including, people like, Jacob with Chaos Dyer, Jeremy exploring with Nug, and agencies themselves. We want to share and expand the greatness of what it is that's happening, and not just keep it a secret. And in the videos you see, we do sonar overviews, and any other industry or something that would compare to this, you would never see anybody give up those secrets, and it we just want to help. Just good guys trying to do good in the world, really, and that's what it amounts to.
With that, this video is, about Ralph. It's not about, fundraising or anything else at this moment in time. It's not talking about, why don't we do a TV show? We're going to be doing an actual live stream coming up in the next week or two. We have a second RV that's coming across that Doug's going to go pick up. We're going to do a fundraiser at that point, and a lot of it's going to cover why don't we do a TV show with the, they'll take care of everything. It would change everything that we are a part of with you right now. So anyway, so do look for that. And we do ask that you do return and help support that, because without you guys, we have no gas for the RV. We have no tires for the RV. We have no food. We're putting a second RV on it. But we'll go into all of that later. Out of respect for Ralph and his family, we wanted to bring this news to you and bring you, the update as to that. With that one, we are going to take the day off today. We did have initial plans to go search for another gentleman out of Medford. However, after a case like this, it is very emotionally draining, and we just have to learn to shut down. A lot of you commented, hey, Jared appears to, be picking up a little bit PTSD. 100%. I will admit that some of it's hitting me, and I have to, take those moments in life to realize and recognize that. So,
we're keeping the balance and learning to become more professional and organized, not only with what it is we're doing on the water here at Adventures with Purpose, but in our personal lives as well. Big shout out to our wives. If it wasn't for how wonderful our wives are, we wouldn't be able to travel the nation and do amazing things, and our children supporting us doing the same things as well. So, as much credit as you guys get for putting us in this position, they get the credit first, because they allow us to be in this position to be here for you guys and families and law enforcement.
Yeah, I do see a lot of you have become new members, as well as donations today. I want to just acknowledge you as a whole on that one. If you guys can help spread awareness as to how and why that helps, drop a link to the how is AWP funded as well. Please help us out to spread that message and awareness. But we'll talk more about that in the weeks to come. We appreciate all of you. Thank you for being a part of this with us. We'll see you down the road, and look forward to bringing you some more good news in the weeks to come. Thanks.